All right, good morning, and thank you for joining me today for this webinar on the Guide to the Consolidated State Performance Report, oftentimes referred to as the CSPR. My name is Alice Garcia, and I am the EL Federal Programs Coordinator. So that basically means that I do all things EL at this point. I support all aspects of English learner programming, compliance, and then also have taken on the responsibility of anything that is related to federal programming. So any reports that we have to send to the feds, any reports that we have to collect from you all, the budgetary issues, so many new and wonderful things that I'm learning and getting to know very well, such as this report right here that we're going to talk about. And the good thing though, is when this report was shown to me, it was something that I needed to send out and maybe do a little, just a teeny tiny bit of guidance on, because it's not a terribly extensive report, at least not the part for Title III. The report itself is actually quite gigantic and has a whole bunch of pieces to it. And so more than likely, there are other people in your school system who are filling out those other pieces. We only have to worry about the Title III part, because that's the part that we are touching, the part that we have influence over or that we're supervising. So that's why this comes to you all, and probably why you're on this call, is trying to just kind of understand what it is. And what I tried to do with this presentation was just go through the steps of how to fill it out, and then address some of the concerns that have come out in the past whenever people have filled out this report. What we are really trying to do though is try to get this report to be as accurate as possible, because it does impact things coming from the feds. So we want to try to get everybody to understand what they're filling out, why they're filling it out, and then how to fill it out. Okay, so we'll go ahead and look at the agenda for today, which the objective, so it's a pretty basic one, an overview of what the CSPR actually is. And like I said, this isn't a new thing, just the fact that we're taking time and creating some guidance around it is new. And it's simply because in federal programs, the person who was managing this was managing probably about like 35 other programs. So just didn't have the time to dedicate that I now have because of my Title III expertise and experience. Then we'll take a look at the form itself. Data collection, like what is it that's actually being collected? The 3 sections of the report. Again, this is a very nice short report. I kind of liked it and said, okay, this isn't bad. Like I feel like I could knock this out, especially if I know what I need. I could probably knock this out in a few minutes if I was at the school system. And then I'll open it up for questions for you all, and then show you guys some resources, which we always show whenever we do a presentation like this. So our objective is to understand the purpose of the CSPR and how to complete the job form. So what you all received on Monday was a link to the job form. If you did not receive that, just shoot me an email and I will get it to you. But the job form is where we're collecting the data from all the different places for the CSPR, so that way we can put it together and report it out to the federal government. CSPR is required annually, and it's a reporting tool. And this is a requirement under ESSA. It is just for Title III. So if you do not receive Title III funds, you do not have to fill out this report. But if you do have to fill it out, because since you're receiving those funds, you are subjected to additional federal and state oversight. CSPR is basically used as a way for us to collect data on certain federal programs. And so, like I said, the CSPR is actually quite large. The only part I'm concerned with is the Title III part. And then we use it for monitoring to kind of see what's going on in our school systems, to report to the feds. The feds then compile that data and say, okay, Louisiana has these programs, this is how they're using the money, and so forth. And then they'll check in with us to see like how we're monitoring and determining the effectiveness of those different programs. And then they use it, as well as us, to determine where we might need to provide additional technical assistance. So that's another reason why, well, really all 3 of these things are reasons why we need the report to be as accurate as possible, and why I'm taking a little time out of your morning to go over how to fill it out, is because that has kind of been the biggest issue with this report. Is we've sent it out and then sort of just hope and pray that it came back accurately, and then compiled it and with the rest of the information that is required, and then sent the report to the feds. And then when we would get the completed report back, we'd be like, that doesn't look right, because there just wasn't time and energy to put into verifying the information and to making sure that it was as accurate as possible. So we're hoping to fix that from here on out. So on the CSPR form, you will see the term LEAP, right? And not LEAP like our assessments, LEAP as in LIEP, and that stands for Language Instruction Education Programs. And that is the term that ESSA uses for basically like an EL program. Okay, so it's the program that is being used to address the needs of our ELs. So either through direct English language development or indirect English language development, meaning we're teaching them English through the content, or it could be a combination of both. I'm not really sure why we don't use that term, maybe because it's too close to the term of our assessments, which is LEAP, which is the Louisiana Education Assessment Program. But it is the term that you will see. I've like tried to change it on our documentation, but anything that does get reported out to the feds, we had to keep that term the same way. So I said, okay, I'll just start using it, start kind of letting people know what it is. So if they hear it, they know what's going on. So ESSA has different performance goals. And the big one, the one that, and the reason why Title III is reported out separately and on its own, is that it is addressing performance goal 2. And that is that all limited English proficient students, which is interesting because for the most part, the federal government has removed the term LEP from most of their literature and has encouraged all of us to do the same. And that's why we've switched to the term English learner. But for some reason, ESSA, because of when it was created, 2015-16, they were still using that term. So you'll see it from time to time, but of course we are trying really hard to rid our literature and our vocabulary of that term LEP, just because it focuses on the deficit and we really want to focus more on asset-based learning. But in this case, you'll see that it's still there. So all limited English proficient students will become proficient in English and reach high academic standards at a minimum, attaining proficiency or better in reading, language arts, and mathematics. So that is one of the goals of ESSA. It is the reason why there's now like a separate accountability measures for ELs, why there's more emphasis on ELs, why certain funding has been rolled into Title I that was originally part of Title III, is because almost I think every one of our public school systems in Louisiana receives Title I. So that was a good thing, right? Where you have to have a certain amount of ELs enrolled in order to receive Title III. So we were kind of happy when they rolled a lot of stuff over to Title I, because it makes it more accessible to more school systems in the country as well as in our state. But that is kind of why so many, we're hearing and doing so much more about with English learners. It's unfortunate that we had to the feds had to kind of do that in order to get more attention brought to these students. But as I often say, is I'll take what I can get. Like I've always put a lot of attention and effort on these students, but sometimes we have to motivate others to do the same with money and with federal requirements and so forth. So I think what will happen though is it'll become so second nature to us that we'll do it and not even worry about the fact that it is tied directly to funding and to federal requirements. And the CSPR for Title III opens in the fall of each school year. So we opened it on Monday and we'll have it open until the beginning of November. And like I said, it's much shorter than the LAU plan, than the desktop monitoring, than any of those other kinds of things that you guys have to do. And I've learned that there's actually quite a few. I'm very sorry about that. But it is an additional form that has to be filled out. The job form itself is pretty simple, and hopefully you've received access to it. Like I said, if you haven't, just shoot me an email, or this presentation, I did send it up to be posted. I don't think they've posted it yet, but it'll probably be posted sometime today in the Federal Support and Grantee Relations Library. So the job form has, and is in addition to the job form, you should have received information about how to access it, which is basically just clicking on the link. The due dates, I believe it is due that first Friday in November, which I want to say is November 4th. Let me look at my calendar. November 5th, I'm sorry. So it's due November 5th. So I gave you a little bit more than a month to fill it out. Contact information, I'm your main contact if you have any questions about this particular form. If you have questions about any other pieces of the CSPR, please contact that program manager. And then the link to the one-pager, which is actually a one-pager. It's only one page on the front because, like I said, the form isn't too extensive. It isn't too complicated. So I didn't have to create a handbook for it or anything. Again, only school systems who receive Title III funds either as a standalone school system or if you're part of a Title III consortium must fill out the CSPR. Okay, and probably what happens with the CSPR is if you are part of a consortium, you're probably sending that information to your fiscal agent and then they're filling it out. Data collection, you'll want to use your most recent October 1 count. And when I say that, you're thinking, oh, wasn't that just the other day? That's almost like too recent. We actually are going to want you to use your 2020 because we're asking about 2020 data. So you're going to look for that. So that makes you feel a little bit better, like you're not trying to scramble and get those numbers for October 1st, 2021. You're wanting the information for 2020, and the form actually explains that. Okay. And then it only consists of a few questions, and I'm going to go over those questions right now. So section A is about student counts. Okay. So not terrible. It's going to ask you these things, and you fill out this table, and this is a screenshot from a portion of the table. Let me just make sure. I think somebody else just popped in. Nope, I think we're good. Okay. How many ELs are enrolled system-wide? Oops, sorry. How many ELs are enrolled system-wide by grade and program? I think that's where it gets a little harder, because a lot of times we'll know, oh, we have 115, we have 9,000 Ls, whatever it is. But I need to know how many are enrolled per grade and per program that you offer, okay? And then we did update the program descriptions to reflect the ones that we have in our EL programming one pager. What I'm really hoping is that if you're saying in your head, oh, we do a pull-out program. Okay, remember, pull in and push in aren't actual EL programs. They're the way that we offer EL programs. So you can have a pull-out ESL, you can have a push-in content-based. So the pull in and push out is less important in this case than what the actual program is. So if you're doing the transitional bilingual or early exit bilingual education, which I don't know of any school systems in Louisiana that are using that. We always include it because it is actually a very strong research-based program, but it is one that's a little difficult to support and to maintain, especially without having like a cohort or something of schools that are doing it. And if we do start seeing that pop up and I have more and more school systems who are interested in doing it, please let me know. We'd love to create a cohort of it and get you guys together and get it rolling. It's probably best for middle or high school for this kinds of program, because it means they're coming in speaking probably predominantly Spanish in this case, and then you're slowly transitioning them into a bilingual program, dropping the amount of Spanish until they're now on to probably either 90% or 100% English. So that's a transitional bilingual program. I think a lot of people think they're doing it whenever they're having a para or an ESL teacher come into a classroom and translate everything, but no, that's just providing, L1 support. And it's not always the most effective way to do an ESL program, a language program, and we can talk more about that. And that's why I think a lot of people think they're doing a transitional program, but really what they're doing is they're just supporting English development by translating everything, and it doesn't always work. You have your dual language or two-way immersion, and for most of our state, those counts are going to be in the lower grades because we don't yet have two-way immersion in our upper grades. So that's the count. Oh, I was wondering why I had the two. I don't know why it's got the two boxes there. I just noticed that when I asked her to get this one. Dual language or two-way immersion language of instruction. I'm not sure why that third box is on there, because that's what should have been. Oh, I see what it is. I'm sorry. Sorry. You have to say what language it is, which all of our two-way immersion programs are being done in Spanish. So it would be Spanish. Sorry. I forgot. We revised this form for this year. English as a second language. This is probably the majority of what you guys are doing. Content classes with integrated ESL support. All of you should be doing this one no matter what. You may not offer any other kinds of EL programming, but everybody needs to be doing this at the minimum. And then your newcomer programs, and then other count. Like if you're doing some sort of additional program, or if maybe you're doing like an intensive English program, or you're doing, I don't know, a multilingual program. I don't know of any of these. I do know of a couple of intensive English programs. You would tell me how many students are participating in those and then give the description of it, okay? If you do have a student who's receiving EL services for more than one program, only count the primary EL, so the LEAP program once. So if you have a student, let's say, who's two-way immersion, but then is also doing a pull-out ESL program, so that means they are now under two-way immersion and ESL. Well, the majority of their instruction is being done through that two-way immersion, so you would only count them in two-way immersion. So do not count them in two different programs, even if they're receiving services from two different programs. If you do have that other program description, like I said, just be prepared to provide a short description of what that program is. And we're very interested in that, because we're always looking for innovative programming ideas. The teacher counts, that's the next, that's section B, so it's basically the second question. How many teachers are serving ELs in the identified Title III LEAP? Okay, so we're going to ask for fully certified and then not fully certified or licensed. That's how many, that's what you're putting in there, okay? And as far as I can tell, this is teachers, not paraeducators, okay? Because our paraeducators, there is no certification process for paraeducators. We're looking very specifically at teachers because there is funding, additional supports, and there are actually some federal requirements for having certified teachers to teach these students. So that's partly why we're collecting those numbers and not collecting the numbers on the paraeducators. I asked you about the paraeducators on the LAU plans, okay? And that's more because that's a state-based information that we're collecting just at the state level. And then how many ESL bilingual education endorsed teachers will be needed for the next 5 fiscal years? So you're guessing, you're kind of saying, all right, right now I have 3. I have 125 students. My population continues to grow. So over the next 5 years, I'm going to need 3 more. So don't count the ones that are already in place, count who you're going to need. And so you do kind of have to have like a crystal ball and kind of figure that out. The bilingual education endorsement is interesting because we don't yet have a public institution in Louisiana that is providing the courses for that. We do have the endorsement available to apply for through the state. And what we do find is that people are moving in from like Texas or another state where that's kind of like the norm, like say California, they have that certification, so then they get it converted. But if you are here and you're thinking, oh, I'm gonna go to LSU and I'm gonna go ahead and take the classes so I can get bilingually certified, they don't yet have those courses. They have courses for world languages, courses for EL, but they don't have the ones for bilingual certification. I see some questions here. The number of ESL certified or number of certified core teachers that teach ELs. We need ESL certified for that particular question. Because we're trying to predict like the need to how many more teachers we need to get certified, and it's also going to help higher institutes of learning know how many more seats they need to have for those ESL certification classes and so forth. Can you report the part on teachers first? Yeah. What teachers do we count again? So you're going to count the teachers that are serving the ELs in the Title III LEAP program. So if you have ESL certified teachers that are serving ELs, like either they're doing that push in to the content class, they're pulling them out for an ESL class, they're teaching actual ESL classes, they're part of the two-way immersion, they're doing a newcomer program, you're looking for those teachers. And then how many you think will be needed. So let's say that you are in a school system and you have 12 teachers, certified teachers who are teaching, but not all are EL certified. You're working on that. So you would count the ones that right now have that EL certification, which is maybe 8. And then you're saying, okay, these 4 are working on it. So I'm going to go ahead and add them into my projection for the next 5 years. That's kind of how that works. So if a teacher floats between different schools, count the teacher for each LEA. So this is a little different than the students for the LEAP program, right? So you're actually going to count the teacher more than once for each program that they support. And then one forecasting, how many EL endorsed teachers are needed over the next 5 years. Combine the numbers for each year. Don't count the number of teachers already working in a Title III program. This is for additional teachers who will need to be certified. Okay, then you have this one, and this is probably, I think, the most complicated piece. Is section C, and it's this long list of what they call sub-grantee activities, because Title III and this piece is kind of like a sub-grant, right? It's like almost like a mini grant within the bigger federal program kind of grants that are allocated to you all. And you're going to go through and you're going to read them and you're going to check each one that is being offered. And then if you click on other, you do have to put a description of what that additional activity description is. And so if you have questions about any of those specific ones, do let me know. What I'd really like is for you not just to click, is to really say, okay, are we doing this? Are we funding this? And it doesn't necessarily have to be only Title III money that's funding it, but just if you're actually doing it. Like there's one about ELs with disabilities. You know, are you doing something in addition or special for them? Because what we'll probably do on that is pull that data and then reach out to some of these school systems who are doing this to just see how it's going, see if you have some best practices that we can share with other people. So just kind of be aware of that. I know we tend to be, educators, and we want to check everything. We're like, oh, well, I have, Eliza who works with that one kid and does this. So yeah, I guess that means we're doing this. Be a little reasonable with those descriptions, okay? And like I said, if you have questions about that, email me and let me know, and we'll investigate it together. If you're struggling to understand what some of the activities are, let me know. Like I said, it's better to ask than to just check everything. We want this data to be as accurate as possible. And that's partly why I'm doing this. Partly why I've moved into this role is because we're really trying to make sure that the data that we're collecting and that we're then sending on is as accurate as possible, so we can create the best guidance for you all to make sure that our policies are being followed. So now let's take some more questions. Let me go back up to the chat, and I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording.